Welcome, everyone, to Mongols. This is our prediction show where we are going to try to break down what we think is going to happen as the Pittsburgh Riverhounds travel to face the Charleston Battery this weekend. I am Mike. Joining me for this one is Justin and Mondo. Justin, how's it going, man?
It's going pretty well.
Okay, can't complain. Mondo, how you doing?
Living the dream. Enjoying a week of vacation.
Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty good dream. Did you do anything fun or relaxing?
I planted some bushes.
Okay. Yeah.
A couple roses and a hydrangea. And then I have to clean the mess behind me. So
nice.
That's why it's not lit up today.
It's all good. Listen, anytime I can get my hands in the dirt, I feel good about the day. So I appreciate planting some stuff for sure. Guys, let's talk about what we think is going to happen in this one. I mentioned off air, we're going to try flipping this just a smidge, and we'll sort of start at the end and then sort of work our way through and see if we agree. So I looked earlier today at sort of the bookie odds to sort of see what the rest of the world thinks and how they think this game is going to play out. So the betting odds in this one are essentially just to sort of like get the high level stuff out of the way. The odds are that Charleston's going to win, followed by a draw, and then in last place is a Hounds win. And so the way that it basically works is that if you're expecting Charleston to win, then you would spend $163 and you would win $100. So like that's kind of the way the odds work. If you're expecting a draw, then you could spend $100 and you'd win $280. And if you expect a Hounds win, you could spend $100 and win $410. So if you're a diehard Hounds fan and you really think that they're going to win, then, put down $100, you can win 410. But the bookies definitely think that is the least case scenario. Before we get into sort of the conversations that we've had this week with, the Charleston fans and what we know from Danny Rivera, how are you feeling about sort of that prediction at this point in time, Justin? Do you think that's about right, or do you think we might land somewhere else?
Not a diehard Hounds to lose this weekend.
That's not what I was.
That's the only way I'm a diehard Hounds fan. No, I feel like that's pretty fair. I feel like that's pretty fair odds based on the way the Charleston season has gone so far, based on the way our season has gone so far. Yeah, I think it's pretty fair odds. I mean, I think I don't see if you're setting the odds, I don't see why you would set them any differently. That's the way the season has gone so far. So no, I don't.
Yeah. Mondo.
Yeah, same. The short form is the same. Charleston's just a little bit too hot, I think. I would lean towards a draw. Historically, I think I would see a draw between us and Charleston, but just the way the season's going, I think the edge is on Charleston's side.
Okay. Let's see if we can change our minds at all as we talk through this. So now jumping back into sort of the conversations that we've had this week, what we've sort of learned. I encourage everyone to go and listen to the previous two podcasts. So I talked to Mikey Bitus, who is part of the Regiment, which is the longest running supporters group that supports the Battery. He was saying the Battery aren't really a deep team. That's one of his big concerns is once they start going to the bench, there's not a lot there. But that said, they do have a lot of scoring depth. They did just send Jake LaCava to San Antonio this week, so they found him to be expendable. Markinick has scored 12 goals in 13 appearances. That said, 4 of those goals came in a 6-0 win against Vegas. That's not to diminish the fact that he has 12 and 13, but they're currently leading the league with clean sheets as well. So they score a lot of goals. They also keep a lot of goals out. Mikey predicted a 2-0 Battery win. So that's sort of in line with sort of the bookkeeping odds. Talk to Danny Rivera. First of all, again, congratulations to Danny on the marriage. Super good news. We talked about that on the show. So if you're interested, go check that out. He said the team isn't happy with the results, but they are happy with the fact that they're generating chances. So this was something that we had talked about in the reaction show last week. It feels like we're on that knife edge where if just 1 or 2 of those chances go in, we're feeling very differently about this team. So who knows? Maybe this is the week that happens. It does sound like the guys are trying to figure out creative ways to contribute. We talked a little bit about how Danny apparently hooked up with didn't hook up, but talked to Langston Blackstock before the game and said, hey, if we could like hook up some way during the game, let's see if we can make that happen. And there was an opportunity where Blackstock found him and Danny most got on the end of header. Likewise, Danny found Langston later. So there's a little bit of that going on. And he said they're not panicking yet. They're kind of trusting the system. And so this could be a game where the floodgates open. It could be another game where we fall short and we generate a ton of chances and we don't score. A few other stats about the Battery. So first off, the Battery have had over a week and a half off since their last game, which was a draw against Monterey Bay. Nate Dos Santos was at the Hounds game this weekend that we had talked about. Statistically, the Battery are the better team, but they have been slumping a bit recently. So this might be the right time to play them. So most recently, as I said, they drew 0-0 against Monterey Bay. The game before that, they lost 2-1 to El Paso. Now, granted, they got a red card at the end of the first half, but they still lost 2-1. In the two games before that, they beat Birmingham 1-0 and they beat Hartford 1-0. So this isn't like, in the past 4 games, they've been lighting it up. They basically only outscored their opponents 4-1 in the past 4 games. So great defensively, but averaging 1 goal a game over the past 4 games. So this is why I'm saying this might be the right time. And then the other thing about them is that they roll with a 4-2-3-1 and they basically hold that shape religiously. It seems like the past few games at least, they start in a 4-2-3-1, they end in a 4-2-3-1, and that's how they play. With that out of the way, I don't know. Like I think we all sort of looked at the bookie odds and we were like, yeah, that sounds about right. I think that the interesting thing to me is the fact that, yes, statistically, when you look at how Charleston has been, they look fantastic. But most of the big numbers that we've seen, they ranked up really early in the season, and now they kind of have cooled just a little bit. The fact that they aren't so deep makes me wonder if there isn't a chance to sort of attack this thing in the second half. With who? I don't know. But I don't know. I just sort of gave a whole spiel. Justin, what are your thoughts on sort of all of that before we move forward?
Back to what Danny Rivera said, I think he said that. I'm glad to hear that. I mean, I think there's a lot of time left in the season. There's 20 some games. And they shouldn't. They're rightful not to panic at this point. You're only a couple points out of third or fourth place. It's Charleston and Louisville have been away with it, but other than that, you're pretty close to kind of the rest of the table, and so there really is no reason to panic at this point. As now 10 games from now, if you haven't figured it out, then you've got a problem. But I think I think the Hounds are. Last week was an encouraging game for me, I think, in the sense that they did a ton of chances. I think I sent in Slack right at the end of the game, 20 plus shots. You're getting there were saves. You hit the woodwork a couple times. All of that happened, and I think, would you like to see them put away those goals? Sure. Is that the way soccer works sometimes? Absolutely. That you create a ton of chances just all the way. And so, yeah, I just agreed with a lot of your comments of I think we are in a nice set. We game like that against Charleston. 2 to 3 shots go in instead of 1. We beat them 3-2 and kind of run away. Different conversation next week. And so, is that what I'm kind of putting my hope on? Yeah, I think. I mean, because at this point, this to put hope on. So, I mean, I think it was an encouraging. Last weekend was an encouraging weekend of okay, this team is putting it together. Do they need to have a game where they actually put it together? Yeah, we do. We need to have a game where we actually put it together.
Yeah, Mondo, what are your thoughts?
So this also, in the same vein as what Justin was saying, last week was really encouraging. We had 2 open goal situations that we just didn't finish. Completely open goal situations. The keeper was out of the picture. Open goal situations. If we had put those away, we would be having an entirely different discussion right now. That being said, we were able to pull the hot as can be in the league right now, Indy, into situations where they were making really dumb mistakes. If Charleston is susceptible to the same dumb mistakes, which if we can pull Indy to do it, if we can pull Louisville into those situations, you know what I mean? Like if we're getting these top teams to be making dumb mistakes where it's just that last like tap in piece, it's very promising. Like that's promising for what we're going to see in the future for the rest of the season. That being said, I'm still concerned at how somehow we have 9 Fernando Torreses out there. Chelsea Fernando Torres. I'm talking about the blue number 9 one, not the Liverpool one that scored everything he touched. Because we just need that last little bit, and that goes back to your knife edge. Like we're literally sitting on the precipice, and the good thing is we only need to make it to the playoffs during the regular season, and ideally we get hot towards the end, because then we can take that heat into the playoffs. That's what we want. We don't want to be.
I think just going with what you said there, I think like you talked about the knife edge, and Mike, you talked about the knife edge too. That knife edge is probably still 5 or 6 away. I don't think if we don't win this weekend, we've fallen off the other side of the knife. I think we're sitting on the knife for probably 10 games.
Yeah.
And now seeing what happens.
Oh yeah, no, I think this is we're probably going to be sitting. We're either going to be on the knife edge or on the good side of the knife edge this season. If we don't have something good come out of the season, I would say then we've fallen off the backside. Like that would be my measure. The knife edge is a season-long knife edge. Yeah. It's not a very sharp knife. But the other thing that I saw that was really good also, I'm sorry, a lot of this is takeaways from the last game, but I think this is feeding into going up against Charleston. Is Charleston, yeah, they have Markanic, who's doing really well, but we shut down Indy's 9. Like he was so frustrated by the end of the game. He was yelling at the linesman, he was yelling at the ref, he was yelling at his own coach. Like literally anybody who came within yelling range, he was firing off. He was that frustrated. And that says a lot to the Pittsburgh defense. Like that defense was just stranding him out there so much that he was that upset. And I mean, yeah, I think we could do the same thing to the Battery. That being said, I still think that we have a tendency to just lose focus in moments that cost us goals, because we saw that we lost focus twice against Indy and they scored twice. Yeah. So that's my concern is the times that we are losing that focus are the times that it's the most hurtful.
Yeah. What do we think about, there's a ton of questions when we're trying to predict at least a lineup. We don't have to go position by position here, but the never ending question that I think everyone keeps coming back to and saying, I don't really care, but it still ends up being a question. Is it Gabby or Dick this weekend? Like Mondo, I'll start with you. What do you think? Where do you think Willie starts?
I'm going to go with Randolph again.
You're going to go with Randolph? Okay. All right.
Yeah. My vote is always going to be for Randolph, I think, until I see, just because Bob's system is one that pretty much any keeper is supposed to be able to fill into. And I'd like to see him play. He's the youngest guy out there, or one of the youngest guys out there. He's a fresh keeper. I'd love to see Gabby or Randolph out there. So I'm going for Randolph. We've seen Gabby a couple times. I want to see Randolph.
I agree that I'd love to see Randolph at some point. Whether or not I'm willing to say like throw him against one of the highest scoring teams, I don't know. Justin, how do you feel?
I think I want to. I don't know. Everybody, I know Josh keeps talking like Dick's the better keeper. We've lost more games with Dick and I don't. Is he the better keeper? I don't know. And so, I think I'd lean Gabby this weekend.
Yeah, I think I agree. Other changes to the starting 11. Is there anything that, from the last game that you guys think specifically you might like to see based on sort of what we know from Charleston? I will say one thing is that one way, and this is not me like, being soccer genius here. I looked this up. Like, how do you beat a 4-2-3-1? And so one way to do that is with a midfield diamond, because you can basically overload the midfield, and sort of the two holding midfielders for Charleston, along with the one attacking midfielder, are outnumbered, and you can sort of pass around them. So it does make me wonder if this isn't a game where either you play sample, and so you sort of get our four midfielders in there and you take off one of the attackers, or you do something similar to what we've discussed in the past, where maybe you have Danny, Griffin, you have Forbes, you have Robbie, and then you have like Sterling at the top of a diamond, as opposed to having Sterling and Kizza both running at the defense at the same time. That way, Sterling has a little bit more opportunity to be a playmaker and sort of feed balls to Kizza or feed balls out wide, while also sort of getting into space. So I think if I were to suggest any sort of changes to the lineup, I thought, other than the two major mental lapses that we saw last week from a defensive standpoint, I think the defense is probably where it could be, short of maybe swapping Biasi for Suber. Biasi didn't even make, the bench last week, which we didn't hear anything about any injuries or anything like that, but that just doesn't seem normal considering that he started most of the games going into this one. So I think Biasi might be back, but otherwise there aren't a ton of other things to kind of tinker with. But I'm interested in your guys' thoughts. Justin, do you have any sort of ideas or things that you'd like to see changed from the last game?
I mean, to me at this point, the striker position just needs something different. I mean, and I don't know exactly what that is. How you follow the union of like, hey, there's a guy in EJ who has a ton of, and then there's who started the first 3 games while Sterling was getting his visa figured out, and then we haven't heard of him since that either. And it's not like Kizza and Sterling are lighting things up, but then the debate comes of like, well, I don't see practice, so I don't know what I don't know what EJ is doing in practice. I don't know what DM is doing in practice, in a day out of these guys that would cause them to start. But part of my or thinking about this is like, this is an away game. You kind of expect to lose away. You want draw. If you're a good team, you get draws on the road. Probably not a good team, so you kind of expect to lose on the road. And so, do you just start and see if they can get hot with a 90-minute, a chance to go 90? Not that they would, but a chance to, and just see what happens. And then, I think about EJ too. Like, this is his former team. There's always these vendettas could be against a former team. There may not be, but there could be this, hey, I want to show them that they made the wrong decision by letting me go. So, could it be a little to play a good game and be a good swap there? Other than that, the past 3 or 4 games, I haven't really had a problem with the way the team is. I think the team has been solid overall. Has there been, a few mistakes here and there that led to goals? Absolutely. Are we not scoring it? We're not scoring anything. I don't know. So my thing is like, at this point, and just see what happens.
Mondo, how you feel about the players on the field to start this one?
So last game, if I remember correctly, according to my notes, we played a 4-2-3-1. We started last game as a 4-2-3-1. The only weirdness I saw in that 4-2-3-1 is Etu found himself starting on the bench. I think basically so Kizza and Sterling could start. I would like to see one of Sterling or Kizza on the bench to start and have both Blackstock and Etu out there, because I have watched them. We've watched them almost all season just tear through defenses on the wing. I think this formation is great. It allows them to push really far forward. It allows them to get in there. and they're both super fast. And I had the two critiques I had from the last game, and I don't think it's going to be as big of a deal against Charleston, is that their shortest guy was taller than our average height, and I don't think we're going to have that problem here. And speed was the other thing, and Atu is the solution for speed. He's one of the fastest guys I've seen. Like it's great, and so I would like to see him out there because Mertz is a fast guy, Blackstock's a fast guy, Atu's a fast guy. Having all three of them pushing the striker forward, like that's got to cause some panic on a defense, right?
Yeah, one of the other ways that you can sort of attack a 4-2-3-1 is by having speedy wingers that play out wide, because what ends up happening is you end up pinning back their wings, or they end up having to leave someone open in space because you're kind of drawing the two wide defenders out.
Yep.
Yeah, and then that leaves space for other people to run into in between the two other defenders. So that could also be a solution where you just send Blackstock and Etu or Rovey just flying down the wings trying to keep them pinned back.
Oh, yeah, continually. And I think that would, because then there'll be enough defensive coverage that I think Bob will be comfortable. Like we'll have the defensive coverage Bob needs, because I think that was the issue with our 5-3-2s and previous formations, is we just, every time one of them shot forward, the other one had to back up.
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of the issue with that formation. I personally just don't like it because of that. But I like having my wingers like super forward. And a 4-2-3-1 is a perfect opportunity to do that with like four very speedy guys, if you include Rovey in there too. And then you have Griffin's technical ability. Again, another game where he just dribbles around everybody, and everybody's just like can't touch him. It's great.
Yeah.
And I think that's another key to unlocking Charleston, is just having him do his footwork through them all.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, let's do this. Let's do score predictions, and then we'll finish on the betting odds, because I feel like the score predictions are slightly different from the betting odds, because you're talking about something slightly different. But score predictions: Hounds head to Charleston. We sort of laid out all of the details. We've sort of said what we're kind of hoping to see, but it's also not necessarily what we maybe think Bob is actually going to do. So, Justin, give me a score prediction for this one.
These are so hard because it's like I want to be a Hounds fan and like predict the way I, or do I predict reality? And the problem with this game is I think the way that the Hounds plays right. It's a lot of defense first, and then hit them on the counter with these fast wingers, and that's mechanic. And so I think like my problem is Bob doesn't, as much as Bob sits back, do attack, and so can you make Charleston uncomfortable and make them possess the ball and bring it to you, or do you go after it and try to beat them, goal for goal? And so I don't know. I think it's probably going to be like that 2-0 Charleston wins pretty safe, right? But maybe 2-1. Maybe we find a goal somewhere.
Yeah. Mondo?
So I'll give you two answers. My heart has one answer because, I have my, Hounds fan answer, and then I have my head my thoughtful answer. So both of them are 2-1. My heart says Riverhounds 2-1. My head says it's going to be Charleston's 2-1.
Okay. Part of me feels like until we start scoring, this could go one of two ways, right? This could be, okay, we know we're not scoring, but we need to get a point on the road. So we just kind of bunker and hope that Charleston doesn't score. Like we're just going to try to keep them off the board, and we'll figure out our scoring woes later. After a game last week where we had 20 plus shots on net and lots of chances, it also feels like the opposite could be true, where We just need to prove to ourselves that we can score goals. So we're going to throw everything we can at them just to open the floodgates, just so then we could say, okay, guys, look, we know we can score goals. Get that monkey off your shoulder. Now we can go back to playing the way we are. So I'm going to say a middle ground. I'll say 1-1. I'll call it a 1-1 draw. Simply because I think, yes, on paper, the Battery look like the better team statistically, but they have had this sort of slump recently. They have had a week and a half off. Sometimes that can play in your favor. Sometimes it can't. And the Hounds sort of have this pressure of like, we've got to do something. And I think another loss in this case is just, not that it's going to be demoralizing, but like the guys have heard it enough. Like they need to step up and like do something. So head, heart are all over the place. I'm just going to have them meet in the middle and say a draw because I could go really anyway here. That said, circling back to the betting odds, if you guys had money that you were putting on this game, would you spend $163 on Charleston in the hopes of winning $100? Or would you spend $100 on a draw in the hopes of getting 280, or $100 on the Hounds in the hopes of 410? Where are you spending your money here, Mondo?
I'd spend it on a draw. I'm not good at sports bet though. So.
I'm not either. I'm just like, this is interesting.
Listen, I root for Chelsea, okay? Clearly I have issues.
Justin, where are you putting your money?
I'm a diehard Hounds fan, so I have to put in $100 to win the game.
Yeah, I mean, in my, if I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, well, you win the most money if the Hounds win. And do I think we're that far off? I don't know. I would probably put my money on the draw or the win for the Hounds, yeah.
To your point about bunkering, my only fear behind that is like you see the teams who, like, you think about the games that like when the lower half of the table teams play Man City, they try to bunker and they try not to let them score, and they end up 5 anyway. And so it's like, could the Hounds be defensively good enough to bunker and not let Charleston score? Sure, but like, I don't love when teams do that, and that's why I really enjoy being a Bright fan right now. Is because when we play, like when Brighton plays Man City, they play their normal games, and you still might lose 4-0, but at least you didn't make it a boring game to play. It was actually a fun game. I would rather these next two, especially. Yeah, I think I would agree. I would rather them throw the kitchen sink at it, and because they did everything they could to score a goal, or you bunker and probably lose anyway. Is that what you want? Like, I'd rather come out of this 3-game stretch and say we had 65 shots on goal with 32 of them on target and like no goals than say we had 10 shots on goal and no goals. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'd rather them just go for it this weekend. Like, just, I don't know, just try to do something,
Yeah.
I mean, the Hounds have been very entertaining all year. Like, from a neutral perspective, from a fan perspective, it's been like frustrating because it was like game of centimeters here. But from a neutral perspective, the Hounds have been just so much fun to watch because they go out there and they throw everything at the game. They came back from 2-0 down to tie it up away, right? We saw that. So we know that there's potential in this team. We know that there's fight in this team. We saw the fight again. They almost tied it up against Indy last weekend. So I think the other thing is when the other team has the ball, the other team has the most opportunity to score. You can't let the other team have 80% possession and not expect to lose heavily. So I think that they should. I hope they go for it. I don't think parking the bus is the answer.
Agreed. Let's throw the kitchen sink at them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, gentlemen, I think that's it for this one. Any other final thoughts before we wrap this one up?
We're going to get one. And one of these times, we're gonna get one. We're gonna have a feel real good about it and show.
Agreed. Well, that is what we think. Let us know what you think. Make sure that you catch us one. The Hounds head to Charleston this Saturday. Hopefully the Hounds bring home a win. And regardless, we will be back with our reaction show the following day to share all of our thoughts. So make sure that you share your reactions with us as well. You can find us on social media. You can find us on YouTube. All of that. We'll discuss stuff. And you can join the show live. We always post when that show is going to happen. Typically, it'll be 7:30 on Sunday night. So jump in, be part of the conversation, and let us know what you think. Otherwise, thanks, everybody. We will talk to you very, very soon.